I mean, not a joke. I was like, I can't believe Candace is saying that. And then this week, I'm like, oh, he's married to a dude. No doubt about it. No, I'm not 100% convinced. I'm not even like 10% convinced. I'll just put it this way. Macron's marriage it's in the headlines all of a sudden.
Right.
Okay? It does make you wonder. It definitely makes you wonder. And I do think he was snorting cocaine. I think that's what that white bag was.
Very well could have been.
Yeah. Welcome back to Truth Hurts. We expose corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. I'm your host, Jake Duesenberg, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Breaking down a lot today. This will be a very, I hope, informative show. If it's not, boy, did I not do my homework well, because I was up late last night. Eventually happened upon Senator Ron Johnson on Tucker Carlson's program. Highly recommend the beginning of that. I've only watched probably about 45 minutes of it, but spot on. As I was going and studying more of this big, beautiful bill, as if the title already doesn't tell you enough, I was like, man, am I on this island? And then all of a sudden, Ron Johnson's using the same exact talking points that I'm using. That's the wrong way to put it. When I say using the same talking points, it sounds like someone feeds them to us. We both came to the same conclusion, so our talking points are in parity, and we'll go through that. And I don't. This is the reason I want to have this program today, because I don't think there's a good breakdown other than what I saw Ron Johnson talking to Tucker about. And then of course in his format they didn't have like the numbers and they didn't have charts, so we put some together for you guys to help you out, because I don't know, when you get into budgets, federal budgets, it gets a little difficult. So it's good to have visuals. So we're going to try to give you some visuals today. I also, despite the negativity of a debt bill, because that's what it is, that clearly doesn't reduce spending, despite what the White House is now saying. Despite all that, I got to say, this is an optimistic show, okay? Now, Gunnar, thank you for coming back, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Filling in for Jesse. Yeah. Mega Jesse, reading your comments at home. If you want to interrupt Gunnar anytime, just hit that Rumble rant button. We'll read your comment live on air. Gunnar, we didn't have enough show prep. Unlike Jesse, who when we start at 10 o'clock, you got a different job and you can't get here till about noon 15, and I was in the middle of a call and then all this stuff. So this is going to be fun. We're going to actually get to navigate this together for the first time. We didn't really get to do a full run through the show. So this is going to be a ton of fun. We're going to talk about, I don't even think I told you this. The name of the show is MAGA World Fights Back. I think this is an optimistic thing, because you're probably like me, Gunnar, as I know you're big on Epstein, right?
Yep.
All of a sudden, the MAGA world, despite what some people will say out there, you know who you guys are. Some of you fellow libertarians who want to say, oh, 4D chess, right? And that does happen. Those people do exist in the MAGA world. But I got a soft spot in my heart for the MAGA world, because I think these are good patriots, good people.
Right.
And what I am seeing right now is them rising up and going, hey, what about those arrests? What about the Epstein client list? What about the JFK files? What about reducing the deficit? Now, Trump can't be a complete innocent party in all this stuff, so I might take a couple shots at Trump, but it's way beyond Trump. Clearly, it's beyond Trump, right? In many regards, Trump is the only reason you have some hope here, and that's what the MAGA world looks at. It is like, hey, this is the opportunity we have to finally reform Washington, D.C. There's not going to be an opportunity like this anytime soon. And so I love the fact, and that's why this is an optimistic show, all of a sudden, the White House and the congressional establishment is starting to respond, and I think a lot of it has to do with Elon Musk. So let's start right there. Elon Musk comes out. Oh, this show is brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. Almost forgot, Jake. Almost forgot. If you're buying a home or selling a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. Not only a great real estate agent, but also sings in my church choir, which is fantastic. You want that from your real estate agent.
Indeed.
Because that way I'm always keeping my eyes on the guy. Also, this is brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com, or you can check them out on Facebook or X, where they got a top-notch meme game and think the way that you and I think. Also, we're brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Elon Musk, when we did our show last Thursday, we didn't do a show on Tuesday. When we did the show last Thursday, Elon had not really come out voicing his frustration about the lack of congressional action on DOGE cuts. Okay, we were reading between the lines. At this point, he has now announced he's done with his contract with the government. Some people say he's quitting, whatever it is, you know. I'm not saying feel bad for Elon Musk. He's the world's wealthiest guy. You shouldn't feel sorry for someone that wealthy, okay? But I will say is I empathize with a person who seems to me to be trying to do the right thing, certainly saying the right things on the problem with government debt and waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, and did this great thing called DOGE, and is super popular with the base. And the base is like, also with Elon on this, it's like, wait a second, where are the DOGE cuts? So this is Elon on CBS Sunday. I tweeted this out. Go ahead and play this clip here, Dawson.
So, you know, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on DOGE gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
And truth, right? And just truth. Can it be both? Do you think it could be both?
No, I mean, and just think about all the work that he went through, and auditing all of these different departments, cutting people. That takes, and really, he's sacrificing his own time, company, all of this to perform these tasks on behalf of the American people, a true patriot. And again, those tax cuts were just used as an excuse to increase spending.
Right on. Yeah. And there's a promise coming out that the DOGE cuts come next week. We'll see it. We'll see it. I'll get into how there's a difference between discretionary spending and mandatory spending, and maybe it is to come. Tucker91 says, good afternoon, everyone. Napkin Nate says, good day. Hope Jesse's feeling better. Jesse's feeling fine. He's up north with family, which is good.
Well-deserved.
Well-deserved, yep. Truth wins in Minnesota. Hello to you too. Laser Jim 56, Cindy Lou. Thank you guys so much. Once again, if you want to interrupt us anytime, hit that Rumble rant. Oh, sorry, Marty 1967 too. Hello, everyone. Says Marty 1967. Sorry, I missed you. Elon, and he's made some other comments and he's tweeted out, has definitely voiced his opinion on the lack of action. And it literally, Dawson, it's like there was a change yesterday. Like, I mean, why does this sound shocking that Elon Musk, who basically put a ton of money, the most money of anyone in the election cycle, other than maybe George Soros, I guess, when he says something, all of a sudden it gets a lot of action, right? So that's not a shocking thing to say, okay? But it did. Like, all of a sudden I'm seeing these congressional accounts. Paulina Luna, who voted for the big, beautiful debt bill, and my boy down in Arizona, Elijah Crane, also who voted for the big budget bill, they're all of a sudden talking tough, like all of a sudden talking different. And it actually brings out a response from the White House. Let's go to the A2, Dawson. This is very fascinating. So this is called Fact. One big, beautiful bill cuts spending, fuels growth. Okay. This show's called The Truth Hurts, folks. Okay? So we're going to call out lies. I believe this to be a lie. I don't believe this to be not understanding what they're saying, right? I guess that would be it.
Right.
Like, listen, we might get something wrong on the show. If we get it wrong on the show, we'll correct it. I got something wrong on the show. I'll bring that up in a second from last Thursday. Nothing huge, but I do want to correct these things. I believe they know what they're saying is incorrect. It says President Donald J. Trump's one big, beautiful bill is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to cut spending, fuel growth, and level the fiscal footing of the American economy. Well, that's true. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do that. It just doesn't do that. Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, explains the bill's historic nature. The quote, the big, beautiful bill is not an annual budget bill and does not fund the departments of government. That's true to an extent. What it does is it tackles reconciliation. If I could take a break here real quick. One of the forums I'm in, politics, someone brought up, well, what is the reconciliation process? And I understood it. And, but it's been a while since I looked up its origins. It goes back to 1974. It's a budget bill past in 1974. And reconciliation is a process where instead of just passing a traditional appropriations bill, you're tweaking what's already currently passed, which are mandatory spending items, revenue, and like the debt. Okay. Now there are some discretionary expenditures in this bill. I'm sure rules are only followed to some extent out there in Washington, D.C., like it is at all levels. But it's tweaking those areas. Okay. So when you look at this 1,116-page bill, yes, right, that's a problem. 1,116-page bill that passed in the middle of the night.
Right.
I think it was like 2 a.m. or something like that. It does a lot of things, but one thing it does not do is actually cut spending. It cuts the growth of spending. It's a cut to the growth of spending. It's like that old office. He's not the assistant regional manager. He's assistant to the regional manager, right? It's literally a cut to the growth of spending, which is what's projected. We'll get into the numbers in a second. So he goes on to say, it does not finance our agencies or federal programs. Instead, it includes the single largest welfare reform in American history, along with the largest tax cut and reform in American history, the most aggressive energy exploration in American history, and the strongest border bill in American history, all while reducing the deficit. Kind of false. Kind of false. I do actually understand their explanation because it says the bill saves more than $1.6 trillion in mandatory spending, including largest ever welfare reform, a remarkable achievement. And then it goes on to talk about how it claims, he writes, this is Stephen Miller, I have also seen claims the bill increases the deficit. This lies based on a CBO, Congressional Budget Office, accounting gimmick. Income tax rates from the 2017 tax cut are set to expire in September. They were always planned to be permanent. They're not permanent, but they were planned. So what does that mean? They were planned to be permanent? They either are permanent or not. Who cares if they were planned, right? CBO says maintaining current rates adds to the deficit, but by definition, leaving these income tax rates unchanged cannot add 1 penny to the deficit. The bill's, that's a little sleight of hand. I don't know if you caught that.
Right.
The bill's spending cuts reduce the deficit against the current law baseline, which is the only correct baseline to use. Okay, so let's get into the numbers, Dawson. I gave you a spreadsheet, and this is about the only way to do it. Using the numbers that are available, I see K-Wall's in the comment section. Cheers to you, and Buddy036. Thank you so much. He says, everyone hopes these budget cuts are going to occur. Proof will be in the pudding. Okay, so let's just look at, on our screen, it's a little cut off in the left column, Dawson. Is it going to be cut off for them, or is it just on our screen?
It will be a little bit cut off. I can try. This is a weird format. So
yeah, I don't usually do. Okay, that works right there. Okay, so you see on the top, instead of breaking down the line items, I'm very sorry, guys. I'm going to go through the numbers here. If this bores you to death, just bear with me for just a couple minutes because I want to show the math. All right. Gunnar, you hit me if I'm going too far.
No, I think this is important, and it's crucial to understand the data here. So sit down and hunker down, and we're going to go through this.
Thank you. That really melts my heart. You said that. Okay, so on the very top, you're going to see total revenues. I'm going to do fiscal year 2025 through 2034. Fiscal year 2025 ends on September 30th, okay? fiscal years begin on October 1 for the federal government. Different than the state government here in Minnesota, which starts on July 1st. We'll get into that in the third segment today. Okay, so in blue is what the CBO already projects for revenues, expenditures, net interest, and then total, rather a surplus or deficit. Let's just get rid of the idea of surplus. That hasn't happened since fiscal year 2000. That was the last surplus that the federal government had. So they're all deficits. Okay, so when you see this stuff in blue, that is the latest CBO projection. Got it? And what they are projecting here, on the top, you can see the revenues, and then you can see the different spending categories. And I'm just going to pull this up on my computer because I got a camera in the way here, Dawson. But if you could see just on the far left, fiscal year 2025, which is almost done, mandatory spending accounts for $4,228 billion or $4.22 trillion. See, these numbers are in billions. Okay, it's hard to even like factor in how much money that is, right?
Right.
Okay, so if there's a total expenditures of $7 trillion or $7,028 billion, right? You see that? Mandatory spending is 4/7 of that, right? It's the largest part of the budget, okay? It's the largest cost driver of deficits, which are annual, overspending. That's what a deficit is, which adds then to the debt. Even if you reduce the deficit each year, which is not happening here, but even if you did that, you're still adding to the debt. People get that confused all the time. Okay, then you get to discretionary spending. That is $1,848 billion, so $1.8 trillion.
Yep.
And then you got net interest on the debt, which is closing in on $1 trillion. It's larger than defense spending right now. That's how crazy our cost of debt is. And we'll get into Ron Johnson, who I think eloquently explains why, rising debt's a problem. We've talked about that on the program a lot. Okay, so when you see the red then for fiscal year 2025, that's the big, beautiful bill. That's what it does. The best way that I could put these numbers together, and these numbers are rough, just based on the fact that the bill hasn't been truly scored, in my opinion, by CBO. They're giving you estimates here. Also, I do think the White House makes a decent point on the revenue game, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So you can see the revenues by this will actually reduce, and because CBO is projecting because the tax cuts get extended and other tax cuts happen, the government takes in less money, okay? But you can also look at the mandatory spending there, and they don't really make much of a cut to the growth because all this stuff is growth, and I'll get in that in a chart in a second. But we're just going to leave discretionary in all these different fiscal years the same, and we're going to leave net interest the same. Net interest will not be the same. When interest rates go up, that becomes more of a problem, and discretionary spending will be determined each year by the appropriations bill by Congress. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're really scoring is the impact of this bill mostly on what it does to revenues and mandatory spending. Okay, let's leave this chart. I put this on our website, truthhurtsnews.com. Pull up truthhurtsnews.com. Let's make this easier with some charts, Dawson. And on truthhurtsnews.com, you can see that, scroll down here. Oh, I'm sorry. Just click on that big, beautiful deficits. Yeah. Sorry, I had it in the A3. All right, scroll down to the first chart. Not the table, but the chart. Okay, so that is mandatory spending. And this is, once again, the blue is CBO projections versus what the big, beautiful bill is. And you see how what they are saying when they say cut to spending, I mean, this is literally what the White House website says. It says, fact, one big, beautiful bill cuts spending, fuels growth. It does not do that. Do you see anywhere where the red line goes down? Okay, that's the beauty of data and then representing data in charts. Because in a chart, it's very clear it cuts to the growth, the projected growth of spending, right? That's the blue line. So it's less than that. But it doesn't go down ever.
It doesn't balance. Yeah, it doesn't balance the tax receipts and the spending. So it continues to spend
So-
at a lesser rate, but it adds to the debt.
We're not looking for this little gap here then. We're looking for this red bar to actually like
Go down.
dip. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Even out. and
Well,
then go
okay,
down.
this is Washington speak. In Washington, I'm not just accusing this White House. They all do this. The Democrats and Republicans alike, they lie about this to a point where I don't know if they even call it a lie anymore, because it's like changing the definition of vaccine, right?
Right.
They just change the definitions. Cut to spending is not. It's like saying this. Imagine your household. You're about to spend $5,000 on the credit card, right? Or you did that last year. The next year, you spend $5,500 to a credit card, and your spouse comes to you and go, but we were planning on spending $5,700, so we've actually cut spending. It's like, no, but last year we spent $5,000 on the credit card, or this year we spent $5,500. Only in Washington, D.C. is that a cut. It's not a cut. Now, what's different is in that household, you guys bear the cost of that decision. When Washington does it, we all bear the cost of that decision. We'll get into that in a second. Okay, so this is what they lack in this bill, is actually deep, reforms where they're actually cutting spending. Even if they're cutting the growth of spending, it's not by a lot. You see how that works out? And you can check the numbers by going to the chart. What that ends up being over a span of a decade is roughly, they say what did they say, 1.6 trillion, but I don't get those numbers. I got I think I got 1.2 trillion. They say 1.6 trillion in mandatory spending. Maybe that's offset by some increases. So that's probably what it is, because then they got the extra spending for the border. So long story short, what Elon Musk talks about, now DOGE cuts wouldn't be in this bill anyhow, but the fact that this came before the DOGE cuts, and that they haven't had a bill with the DOGE cuts, and even if they had the bill with the DOGE cuts, and I love DOGE, and I think it's good, and we should make those cuts 100%, but we are talking about with DOGE hundreds of billions of dollars. So that brings up the next chart, Dawson, is the deficits. When I was doing this right before the show, I could not figure out how to get the x-axis to put the but you see how the one above it kind of lines up with the years. So this is fiscal years 2025 to 2034. And what you see from this is the blue is what CBO projects would have been the budget deficit, and in red it's what the deficit is under the big beautiful bill. And you can tell what's happening here is it's still larger deficits to the point where it adds roughly $4 trillion. Now let's go back to the White House here. The White House writes, where was this? It's an accounting gimmick. Income tax rates from 2017 tax cuts are set to expire in September. They were always planned to be permanent. CBO says maintaining current rates adds to deficit, but by definition, leaving these income tax rates unchanged cannot add 1 penny to the deficit. Okay, so kind of true, right? If you reduce taxes, the easy thing to say, and this is an unknown territory, it's gray area, but the easy thing to say is, oh, that's less revenue to the government. But what if that money now being in our pocketbooks allows us to spend money and it expands the economy and there's more revenues because there's more economic activity that's being taxed? Does that make sense? That's the old conservative argument, and it's a true argument, and 100% can be true, and it's hard for CBO to score that, and it's hard for anyone to score that because you don't know the damn answer to that, okay? So it's a gray area, okay? What I want people to be focused on is we need to be concerned about the spending, and clearly the big, beautiful bill does not accomplish that. So let's bring in Senator Ron Johnson on Tucker Carlson, who even says some of the cuts are fake. And I kind of understand what he's saying, because if we're looking 10 years down the road, and a lot of people are tweeting this out right now, they're like, if Republicans don't pass the DOGE cuts, they will not win re-election in 2026. Right. So if you're not making massive cuts now to the federal government, there is no telling you will be in power. I mean, Trump will still be in power, and the Senate could still be Republican, but there's no telling that the Republicans will have the House, and they might not even have the Senate. And so therefore, they missed the window of opportunity to actually make some monumental impact. This is on Tucker Carlson. You got the timestamp here, Dawson?
I think I do. You said this is on Tucker Carlson.
Oh, do I not have? Why do I not have the? Sorry, I don't have the link in there. Let me pull up that link for you.
Razzle Dazzle chimes in and coins the term "big bloated bill," and it's true, very much so. That's what we should refer to it from now on.
Good job on the comments there,
Yeah,
Gunnar.
there you
That
go.
was fluid right there, just like Jesse. We're not even missing a beat with Jesse.
Yeah, I like this seat.
What do you got, Dawson?
I was gonna ask a filler question, but we're all good.
Okay. All right, so here we go. This is Ron Johnson. Is that the right timestamp at 13:38? It looks like it's a little further than that. This is Ron Johnson on talking in particular about the cuts on the big beautiful bill, which he is against.
So much of the savings they're talking about in the one big beautiful bill is phony, it's fake. Or it's in the out years where if Republicans lose power, Democrats will just restore it. But no matter how you slice it, from my standpoint, CBO's $22 trillion of 10-year deficit is a rosy scenario. It'll probably be more than that. And what happens then is what's happening right now in the bond market. Interest rates are creeping up. You can't control that. If global creditors look at the United States as uncreditworthy, our 50-year average interest payment that we paid on our debt is over 5%. So I think it's as high as 5.8. It's not the most exact figure, but right now we're borrowing probably about 3.3%. That's been the average over the last 25 years, 3.3%. And that's kind of where we're at right now. If we increased that interest, if that interest expense increases to, or rate increases to 4.3%, add another $4 trillion in deficit spending. If it goes up to the 50-year average of 5.3, add about $8 or $9 trillion to the 22 trillion. So again, you go 22 trillion plus extending current tax law, add another close to 4 trillion. If interest rates start creeping up, and they are, just 1 percentage point, add another 4 trillion. So you can see very quickly you go from 22 to 26 to $30 trillion, add down to $37 trillion. We're up to $67 trillion in debt. I don't think we'd ever hit that. I think something's going to happen. We'll have a debt crisis. We'll have failure in our bond auctions.
Okay, let's stop
Spiking
right there.
interest rate.
And this is something that I've talked about a lot. I've been talking about this for well over a decade. I get it. Someone was mentioning to me the other day, they go, I heard you talking about this on the show, Jake, and I just glossed over it. I'm like, and I know how important this is. And it's like, I get it, yes. The Federal Reserve in the Fed, this is Ron Paul. I brought Ron Paul's book out for a reason today. Mm-hmm. It is so corrupt. I did Andy Parrish's show last night we recorded. I don't know if it's out yet. He started out the show asking me what quantitative easing was. And I was like, what? I love, fun question to answer that one. Get explain how literally there's open corruption. Like if we did it, it's counterfeiting and we'd be in prison. And the Central Bank of America does it openly.
Right.
To the tune of trillions of dollars, which costs you and me money because, and this was interesting, Ron Johnson brought this up. Let's go ahead and get the Rumble rant here before I bring up the inflation
We
calculator.
got a $5 Rumble rant from Incognito. There we go. So if I project to make $70K this year and only make $60, can I submit my taxes as a $10K loss?
It's a cut.
That'd be nice.
It's a cut.
Why not?
Love it, Incognito. All right, so Ron Johnson actually brings up A8 there, Dawson. This is inflation calculator. This is Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Just so you understand, it excludes energy and food in the inflation calculator. So it's very important for you to understand that this isn't even a comprehensive thing. And he brought up 1998. He said he was bringing that up just because it was like the dollar was worth 51 cents, what it was in 1998. And I thought that's interesting because 1998, I was in high school. And so I was thinking, like, of all the dollars in my pocket, and just type in, you see January 1998, and then just put $1 in that first one, and then hit calculate. Put April 1998. Well, what does it come up with? I'm sorry, do that. We did that backwards. On the top, April 2025, and then on the bottom, April 1998. Gunnar, we're the same age, so high school years, 1998.
I graduated in 01. There we go.
Yeah, we graduated same year. 51 cents. So if we took those dollars we had in 1998, which You probably grew up in a modest household like me, right? Or were you uber wealthy? I don't know.
Not so much. We lived in Stillwater. We owned a small hotel. It was a good time.
There you go. Now it's still there, is it?
It is, yeah.
No, I didn't know that. Interesting. Things I learned. So those dollars, if we put that under a mattress, are only worth 51 cents today. The buying power is only 51 cents. That's how much so they've essentially stolen half of our value in that period of time. And that just doesn't seem like that long ago. 1998 was not that long ago. And as we just mentioned, so that would have been the Clinton years. That would have been the second term of Clinton, right? And it was fiscal year 2000 where we actually ran a budget surplus. So since 1998, they've essentially stolen half the value of your dollar. So when we talk about funding this debt, I mean, they are doing it in a very deceitful way. They print money out thin air. They buy up the U.S. treasuries, and what ends up happening is it depreciates the dollars in your pocketbook. So instead of just going there and taxing you directly, which they do that too, although half the country doesn't have tax liability, federal tax liability, but they tax you directly and then they tax you indirectly. And indirectly is the worst one because it adversely affects savers and it adversely affects the people at the lowest parts of the economic ladder, the poorest of our society. All right, so Ron Johnson then goes on to explain so well, in my opinion, on Tucker. This is the A5 Dawson. What is the problem in the end? Like we're gonna tell you, and I'm gonna give you my solution, and I'm gonna tell you what Ron Johnson's solution is. Lack of that solution, basically, kind of. But why this is such an important issue? Because if we don't solve this right now, and this is probably the only time in my lifetime where I think, at least probably the only time we'll have a chance of doing this mandate that Trump has. So let's go ahead and play the problem that ensues if we don't solve this problem.
Majority figures out they can just steal money, then you're just like headed to the cliff and there's no pulling back. Are we there?
Well, again, they're not stealing it. They just don't realize that how it's financed is by printing money. And they can't afford things.
Well, if you're
because
taking
of
other people's money,
well, sure.
at the point of a gun, it's called theft.
Yeah, they try and tax it, but we're not taxing anywhere near enough.
Right. No, right.
So we're going to have to borrow $2.2 trillion for the next 10 years, every year. At least.
But that's effectively a tax because it devalues the money in your pocket. So you're basically paying $10 for a Big Mac and a Coke. So
inflation's a silent tax. It's really nasty.
Do you have any hope?
I'm not the world's greatest optimist.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you be? I fear we've passed the point of no return. The reason I'm digging my heels, and Tucker, I don't want to.
I bet you
I really don't. I mean, I'm not looking for it. Listen, I love what President Trump is doing. He is such a unique individual, unique political figure, unique president. He is doing things that only he would do. Nobody else would do it. And it's things that have to be done. Okay, so I'm so supportive of most of what he's doing. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. We've never had such an unprecedented level of spending. Returning to a reasonable level is just so common sense and not that hard. It's not going to be easy. But what I've done in laying out those pre-pandemic options, go back to Bill Clinton, 1998, when we actually had a surplus for the first time in 1969. I don't think we spent too little in 1969 or 1998. Obama in 2014 or Trump in 2019. There are three options. Leave Social Security, Medicare, and interest as they are. Spend what you need to spend. But for all the other outlays, you just increase them based on population growth and inflation. A very reasonable control, right? You end up somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5 trillion. Now, I would go back to Clinton, recognizing that 9/11 happened after that, so you probably have to plus up defense, although I'd like to hone how we spend our defense.
Okay, let's stop right there. You can already see him kind of searching for the answer, which is a little upsetting. And then he's brought this question. Let's go to the A7. He's brought this question was posed to him by Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper, CNN, most credible journalist out there. Everyone else got the sharp as a tack, thing wrong on Biden. And Jake Tapper had nothing to do with that. How dare those? You see him the other day. He's like, journalists have got to stop believing politicians and the institutions. I'm like, oh my God, like what? You're such a joke.
Imagine being so obtuse, not realizing you're part of the problem.
Fair point. Here's Ron Johnson being asked on CNN, what's your solution? Listen to this.
So what
You don't defeat the deep state by funding it.
Right. So what changes are you going to push for in this bill when the Senate takes it up? You want to make $6 trillion in spending cuts over the next decade, you say. Just for comparison, that's the equivalent of almost the entire federal budget from last year. Here's where all that money went last year. We're just holding up a chart. You already know the percentages here of how much is going to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Pentagon, and on and on. Where would you make cuts?
But first of all, you take a different approach. You don't start at $7 trillion with completely unjustified level spending and then subject yourself to death by 1,000 cuts. You start with a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending. You've heard people talk about zero-based budgeting. I'm talking about a budget of 5.5 to 6.5 trillion. Those are options from Clinton, Obama, and Trump, where you just take their actual outlays, plus them up by population growth and inflation, leaving Social Security, Medicare, and interest untouched. That would leave you somewhere between 5.5 and $6.5 trillion. So you start there, but you have to do the work, and you need the time to do the work. I have to believe when you go through 7,000
there. You can see he doesn't actually have a response. Now, I don't want to shame Ron Johnson because I am, despite what some of my political opponents might think, I can be a glass half full kind of guy and praise him for actually defining the problem very eloquently. I mean, for those of you that watch this show, it's exactly what we've been saying, okay? He is saying the right things. He's coming to the same conclusions. And I agree, pre-pandemic spending, which just so happens to be what Action for Liberty was calling on the Minnesota legislature to do. Go to pre-pandemic spending. That's not long ago, okay? All right, so if they did that, let's go, Dawson, pull up the article again. I threw the pre-pandemic spending up there.
Andy Parrish says Johnson is a stud. I agree, especially with his stance on 9/11 now. Fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't even get to that part of Tucker, so I'm pretty excited. I mean, I saw they were talking about Building 7, which still to this day confuses me.
You're coming around on it.
Well, Building 7, I've never heard a good answer for. That one does not make sense.
Right,
that
good.
does not make
Keep
any sense.
asking questions.
Yeah, well, that is true. The Jews did not do it there, Gunnar.
That's not what I'm saying.
Is that what Mark believes? Mark still believe in that one?
It was the Mossad and the CIA for sure.
Well, I shouldn't say the Jews.
There's evidence for that.
Yeah, it was you, Dawson.
There's
no,
me.
the Mossad's got to be put in a different light, right? It's like calling. Well, never mind, I won't go down that. We're going to talk about Epstein next one. Scroll to the bottom there, Dawson. These are the so this is from CBO, and of course this was in the past, so we know the actual numbers. The government took in $3.5 trillion in revenues in fiscal year 2019. So this is pre-pandemic. The total, they call it outlays. That's expenditures, spending, right? Sorry, they just call it different things in federal budgets. I know most of you guys aren't CPAs. So outlays means expenditures or means spending. And of that, 2.7 trillion was mandatory, 1.3 is discretionary, which includes defense. And then 0.4, so $400 billion is net interest. So we're well over double that in net interest in that little period of time. Talk about a monumental problem, right? And I used to write about that problem back in 2012. Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the federal government was spending a total of $4.4 trillion. Well, we are projecting right now, let me get this back up, revenues, where's my spreadsheet? Even under the GOP plan, which would be for fiscal year 2019, would be $5.1 trillion. So if we actually, you don't need to show it, Dustin, I was just looking on my computer. If we would actually be running a $709 billion surplus if we went back to those expenditures. Now, Ron Johnson, I know what he's doing. It's the politics, and this is why we're not going to solve this problem. This is why I'm a prepper. You guys laugh. Your son's in the audience here. You guys laugh. That's why I'm a prepper. Because I don't believe they're going to solve this problem in Washington, D.C. I am going to still vocalize my issue with it, I'm going to speak truth, but I have zero faith these guys are going to solve it. I am still hoping I'm wrong on that, but this is such a monumental problem. If you can't solve this problem without touching Social Security and Medicare, and you certainly got to touch Medicaid, which at least the Republicans were willing to kind of do by cutting the growth to the spending. But you got to touch Social Security and Medicare because they're too large a part of our budget. Just going back to this, we have $4.4 trillion. Mandatory spending alone. Let me get this figure right. Mandatory spending alone in fiscal year 2026 is, under the GOP plan, $4.4 trillion. So mandatory spending, Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid, is already the total fiscal year 2019 budget. And guess what we have to do? We have to actually make the interest payments on the debt. So that's already a $5.4 trillion budget. If you don't touch the mandatory spending, it's $5.4 trillion, and that leaves no money for defense, and I don't know anyone that's going to make an argument that we don't have any money to pay our soldiers. You see the problem here? Mm-hmm. And if we're at $5.4 trillion, we're still adding to the deficit. We're still adding to the debt. We're running a deficit, a smaller deficit, but we're still adding to the debt, which compounds the problem. So yes, Ron Johnson's right. We should absolutely go back to pre-pandemic level spending. The problem is none of these congressmen have the will to actually do that. Let's go to the comments here.
It looks like, hey, doesn't Gunnar's son do a good Trump impersonation? We never got a chance to see that. Maybe we'll hear it at some point. If there's a Trump quote that we need read.
Do you have a good impression? What, you got a line that you want to do? What do you want me to say? I don't know. Can't even hear him. Can you throw the mic on? I don't know if he wants to be ready for camera.
I think he's got the mic right there.
Can you tap on it?
Tap on it. Is it good to go?
That one does not look like it.
It's good we don't have a camera. You go to the next one. It's good we don't have a camera because he looks absolutely nothing like Donald Trump. Yep.
Okay, so we can do that one, but it's got a nasty buzzing that's happening right now.
Okay, let's hear the impression. What should I be asking you a question? Or can you go right into the character?
Defend the big beautiful bill.
The big beautiful bill is the greatest bill ever made in the history of the U.S. Quite frankly, Elon loves it. We're going to put the big bill everywhere, and it's going to revolutionize everything.
He's good. He's even got the little head tick, you know?
He's got it.
Wow, okay.
It's good stuff.
Jeez,
I'd
where
like
did that
to say
talent
he
come
learned that
from?
one from me, but that was all him, so.
Jeez, that
stuff.
was very impressive.
Yeah.
You guys could hear that. Not very well.
Could they not hear it at all?
No, they could hear it. It's just a little quiet, and that's all.
Sure, that's good. He was shouting a little too.
Well done, Gunnar's son.
Yeah.
He was shouting. That's part of the thing.
That's the shtick.
Yeah.
Before you guys think Gunnar's son's like this young little, he's like taller than me, and he's 20?
He's 20
years old?
Yeah,
So.
I started young. I'm proud of this young man over here. Good stuff.
Which is crazy because you and I are the same age, and you got a 20-year-old son.
Indeed.
10 years older than my oldest son.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Although you got a bunch of younger ones.
And another one on the way. I don't know what's going on. Wild world.
It is a wild world.
Yeah, I love it.
It is a very wild world. Oh my God, it's getting wilder and wilder. Okay. No, Renee, I still need him. We're live on air. It's a hang, right? Hey, who's this Right T account?
I don't know.
How do they know?
Is that you, sir? Oh, I don't know who it is.
Who's this righty? Okay.
We've
feel
talked about
something's up.
Logan's impression before, so.
Have we? I just forgot about it. It's like my job to know this kind of stuff. Okay. Where did we leave off here?
I think it's.
Oh, yes. So once again, pre-pandemic levels is a solution. I think there is no will by these people in Congress to solve this problem. Now, what's really important for you guys to understand, and I don't know Ron Johnson's motivation. He certainly seems to be speaking a lot of truth since COVID. You know, I've been more impressed with him more and more lately. But most of these congressmen, their motivation is actually just to be invited back to the club. It's one big club. We're not in it. They like Gavin gavels, but as seen by Nancy Pelosi, she can give up the gavel for good. She still wants to run for re-election because she just wants to stay in the club. And they give her a nice little title, Speaker Emeritus. But listen, they want to be in the club to the point where John McCain and Dianne Feinstein won't give up their Senate seat when they're incapable serving because they want to die in the club. Like, that's the kind of people we're dealing with. John McCain basically left the Senate, or left Arizonians, Arizonites? What is it?
Arizona.
He left those people from Arizona that hail from Arizona. He left them without basically full representation because he wanted to die in the club. That's the people we're dealing with. And so in the club, I think this is a Mitch McConnell saying, is like, no one ever lost election or re-election for growing spending.
Right.
So it's like they are not incentivized to solve the problem. You know, every once in a while someone's like, Jake, you should run for Congress. I'm like, oh, there's a time where I would run for Congress. It's a time where my brand of politics would work. You know, they would have pitchforks and try to throw me out, but I'd still do it. I just don't have a desire to go out to Congress, right? I'd still do it because it's the right damn thing to do. I would vote against all these bills that further indebt our children. I mean, you're 20 years old. Your future looks a lot bleaker than ours when we were young. Because, you know, when we were young, once again, there was a budget surplus. The national debt was under $10 trillion.
Right.
They could have solved the problem. I have a book. I don't think it's on set, but it was talking about this problem back in the 80s. And it's laughable to hear them talk about the problem of $100 billion
right,
budget
just how
deficit.
simple it would have been to solve. I think the other thing to keep in context here is with the inflation, that's an exponential number. You know, it will only continue to increase rapidly over time. So if it's been 50 cents, you know, if it's been, if our dollar has diminished in value by half since 1998, well, probably a quarter of that is in the last 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. And that rate is going to continue to increase. And I think another thing that is important to note is Elon Musk has gone around and said that inflation is because of government spending. And
Right.
I agree, that's part of it. That is part of it. Whenever we have a deficit and we print money, that's going to cause inflation, and it's going to take a little while for that inflation to propagate. But the other thing that is causing inflation are the laws that we have on the books for our banks and the Federal Reserve. If we have a zero reserve ratio, we're going to continue to inflate our monetary supply. So it's not just our government spending that we have to get under wraps. It's tackling the beast of the Fed, auditing the Fed, understanding where our money is, where it's gone, how much gold we actually have, things like this. Until it's a multifaceted approach, until we take on our federal government and look at the Fed, we're going to continue to compound this deficit and interest problem.
Yeah, I love how you put that, because you're right. The Federal Reserve, and this is a great book if you haven't read it, In the Fed by Ron Paul, who is subscribes to Austrian boom and bust cycles theory, which is fueled by the Federal Reserve. And it's not just quantitative easing. In fact, this book would have probably been written when quantitative easing was just happening. It's also what they do to interest rates in other markets, right? The rates that they charge member banks.
Right.
So they actually manipulate the currency quite a bit. But what we've seen, their biggest damage is, it seems, because the Fed's supposed to be the lender of last resort, and of course, the only reason they're getting away with the government debt is the Fed can literally add a zero to a balance sheet or putting in a checking account and then buy up our U.S. treasuries with money that was created digitally out of thin air. Not real savings. It's not real savings. So, and as Jesse said on the show, well, we could just get rid of that. We don't even need to pay China back. I'm like, well, then that exacerbates the problem, because then it actually increases interest rates because no one wants to borrow. And that's already happening, and we got downgraded by Moody's. We talked about that in the last show. Okay, but once again, I want to remind our audience, Tom Emmer is the whip. He's the guy out there selling this and trying to get votes to pass this thing, just so you guys know. That's his job, and he doesn't have to do his job. He could not do that job because that's a terrible job. But this is an optimistic story because Elon pushes back. Now, all of a sudden, you're starting to see a large part of the MAGA contingent saying, hey, we this is not what we voted for. We want DOGE cuts. And the DOGE cuts are only a start. You got to slash more to spending. But at the very least, we need DOGE cuts. And the White House scrambled and they said, we are sending Congress a bill to institute the DOGE cuts. So, you know, it's better than nothing. It's better than not saying, oh, screw you guys.
Right.
They're responding to it. But it reminds me of another promise. This next segment's brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. We were promised the Epstein list, weren't we? Is that not one of the promises that were given to us in the MAGA universe?
We were supposed to have full disclosure. Instead, they paraded a bunch of puppets that were in the media, that were not mainstream media, folks who were on the right, who were totally on board with the narrative. They got their binders with the Epstein information or whatever. All of that stuff was already public information. They're not giving us the real meat of the issue, and that is who funded it? Who did Epstein work for? Yes, I'd like to know who he has blackmailed, but at this point in time, you know, there's obviously, if they're engaging in awful activity, they should be culpable to a degree. But there's a huge intelligence gathering apparatus that it seems like these folks are now compromised and in on. So when you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino saying we're going to release everything to the American public, and then when they come on and, after when they're hired onto these positions, they've had a chance to do some research. Now they're walking back their stories. They appear as if they're a deer in headlights when they're asked about whether or not Epstein killed himself. So,
all right, Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up the B1 here. This is comments by, I guess Kash Patel was on Brett Baer. Brett actually had asked on X if people had any comments or questions, and he would ask that. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be covered, Epstein. So here's Brett Baer playing a clip of Dan Bongino and then asking Kash Patel. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Oh, sorry, there's ads.
Is this an ad? Oh, this is an ad. What is this for?
I don't know.
There are. The Epstein thing, you dealt with. There is a lot of conspiracy theories out there. There are. The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria. You said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that, and it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah. And if somebody says, how long is that going to take? You know, we always see investigations in Washington that end up in blue ribbon commissions, and it doesn't seem like anything comes from it. Do you think actual prosecutions will come from some of this stuff?
I think from some of this stuff, when we go back and look at things like the pipe bomber case, the cocaine in the White House, January 6th, and Crossfire Hurricane, the prosecutorial decisions will lay at the Department of Justice. But we are rigorously investigating them, and I think we've developed some great leads. And I also think we're not going to wait for any blue ribbon commissions. That's up to Congress. If they want to do that, that's totally fine. They're a coordinate branch of government. But we've got answers coming on all of these matters.
Got it. I mean, at this point, it's all freaking talk.
Right.
It's all talk. And, you know, I don't know how much Elon, I would love to pick Elon's brain on this one. If he feels used, I just saw someone shared this tweet. I have got to post this up here. You guys will definitely appreciate it. It's the Elon just witnessed a cycle. Oh, shoot, it's not up. Elon Musk really did speed run through the Republican Party experience. Number 1, euphoric victory. Number 2, grand sweeping plans. Number 3, complete governing incompetence. Number 4, political disillusionment. Sorry, I just had a screenshot. I didn't have the actual tweet. It seems to be that's the case. I think the MAGA universe is starting to realize that instead of going right to political disillusionment, they're like, hold on, we really have a lot vested in this, and we want some damn answers. And I don't even know if I'd call this incompetence. I'd call this corruption. Let me ask you this, Gunnar. Is Donald Trump one of the clients on Epstein's list? Is that why we don't find out?
Well, I think 100% he is. Just look at how he met Melania. He was introduced to Melania through Ghislaine Maxwell. There are heaps of pictures of Epstein and Trump, buddy. Now, there may have been some fracturing and breakup. Who knows?
I mean, threw him out of Mar-a-Lago. That was pretty well
For some
documented.
business deal. I don't know if it was necessarily for pedo action. I don't know. But when I look at that particular relationship, when I look at what Trump said to Ghislaine, I wish her well, what have you, while she's in prison, it seems to me that there very much is some compromising material that is had on Donald Trump, and that is continuing to impact and affect his administration. As Kash and Dan Bongino begin to dissect this, research things, they're saying that they're going to release the video of Epstein's suicide. We're told that there wasn't a video. I mean, AI could do any number of things. Nobody believes that. Even Dave Smith is now saying he might think Epstein is still alive. It could be if he was that high of an asset. Remember, it was what do we determine when Acosta was in Trump's administration? He was like Secretary of the Transportation or something, some low level position or something, but he said that when he was the Attorney General of Florida, he was told to back off of Epstein because he was intelligence. So what we're seeing now, when we see Kash make very, before he was in the office, before he was director of the FBI, he was making very pointed statements of fact with specific inquiry about what happened. Now, there's no specific statements of fact. There's no little bits of information that would lead us to believe he's on the trail, the people are going to be held accountable. If anything, we're seeing all of the evidence of a cover-up. We're seeing the American people being lied to on this particular situation. And like many are saying, this is an intelligence operation. It was like the Mossad, the CIA, MI6. Colonel McGregor is now saying those three institutions are joined at the hip. I believe it. And the intelligence operation that was conducted by Epstein wasn't just Epstein acting alone. This was a much larger organization and operation, and the level of interference with our government by these intelligence communities is absolutely unacceptable, unpalatable, and it might be the biggest story of our time. Some people are asking whether or not they would rather have the JFK files or the Epstein files. Personally, I would rather have the JFK files because I think if you go back to the source of the coup, we can fast forward and then also understand what Epstein was. But I think that there is some merit in really trying to understand what happened with Epstein. Maybe it is the better option to pour through all of those documents if we can get them, because that would give us a current state of and the current status of the ability of our federal government to operate without this compromising material.
All right, Dustin, play some devil's advocate, or play just yourself, because maybe you reject some of this thing. But knowing what you know about Epstein, I think there's a lot to know that we all know about Epstein. I mean, he was clearly gathering, well, let's not say intel. He was clearly putting world leaders and powerful people in compromising positions. That's a matter of fact.
He was gathering intel. The condo that he had.
Okay, you say he's gathering intel, and I agree with you.
Yep.
But I don't think it's disputable he was putting wealthy people or powerful people in compromising positions, right? Is that?
I like to think that simple answers are usually more correct. I think that he was just blackmailing people. He wanted big friends. He had powerful friends, got a lot of money out of it, I'm sure, and then it was blackmail. I have kind of thought from the beginning that, or not the beginning, but like even on the campaign trail, Trump was asked, would he release the JFK files, blah, 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 blah. And he said, yeah, on everything. And then they asked him about the Epstein files, and he was like, well, of course. Well, actually, that's a little harder. And he went on and talked about how he maybe couldn't do that one.
Okay,
Right?
so so that's where I was going with this. All right, so we know that Epstein was a person that had access to the world's powerful people, and he was putting them in compromising positions. And I would argue, yes, gathering intel, but you could just say putting people in a position where they could blackmail him to get something,
Right.
Which suggests he's an agent for something. Okay,
Right.
A lot of fingers point towards Israel. A lot of fingers point towards just some kind of world elite group. Okay. Here's the question I have. I don't see another option, and I'd love, in the audience too, if you got another one. But either Trump is on the list as someone that was compromised, or enough people close to Trump are on that list, and that's why this thing is not being released. Maybe Jesse would argue Trump's got bigger things to deal with, but honest to God, knowing our government and powerful people are compromised by somebody who didn't really kill himself in prison, like, that's pretty damn important. So don't hide behind he's got more important things to do. That's damn important. That's very important for the American people. It's very important to his base. Once again, this is about MAGA is rising up and fighting back. I don't see another option here. It's either Trump is directly on that list, or enough people were important to him are on that list. And either way, Trump is bad in this light. What are the other options here? I don't see another option. Why are we not fine? Because at some point, I guess that would be the only option. Is it's below Trump. It's below Trump. He can't be bothered with this. But yes, you can be bothered with it. Trump is spending time right now pardoning reality TV stars. He's got time to actually pardon reality TV stars. He's got time, and he's got time to tweet and truth out. He's got time to demand that the Epstein list gets made available.
I can't remember. Has he spoken about releasing the Epstein list since the campaign? I don't recall.
I think he's been asked that question, but of course he always just refers to the FBI, and now Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who a lot of people had a lot of hope and faith in, seem to be. I mean, it's funny to watch those two people that were beloved by the MAGA universe basically being questioned by MAGA universe on a daily basis. And good for you guys. And this is what I said this to Dawson before the show. I go, listen, the left all lived this lie. I mean, it was maybe Dean Phillips, and he didn't even really fully say this, but they all lived this lie that their candidate and their president was sharp as a tack.
Right.
They are willing to unify over such bullshit because that is the left. The right, or the MAGA movement, thank God they're not unified on stupid shit, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you still do get the 4D chess. Trump knows what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. And you get the QAnon people. Trump knows what he's doing. He's always in charge. Oh, you think Biden was real, right? And the earth is flat. So you get that too. But I'm telling you, there is a substantial amount in the MAGA universe and people that are MAGA adjacent, libertarian type people like myself who see a lot of the good in Trump, and they are rising up and they're voicing up, and I'm thankful that they're not unified over bullshit just like the Democrats are.
Right.
Thankfully.
What I'm hoping and praying that if it does come out and Trump is on the list in like the bad way, I hope that people aren't running defense for it, because that's going to be such a gnarly one to it gives me goosebumps to think that some people would go ahead and defend it, even if.
Of course, isn't it almost equally as bad though if somebody that's close to him is on the list and he's covering for him?
Neither of them are good.
Right.
Neither one of them are good. And I'll think more about it on this show. This show's hang. It's not like I've thought this one out fully, but no one here on set has got an answer other than that. It seems to be one of the two.
I don't know.
So
I wish Jesse was here.
So let's think about this. Okay, so Billy22 just made a pretty good point, and that is, if they were able to cover up Biden's condition, that there is an office within the presidency, within the White House, that is more powerful than a president.
Well, that's what Billy 22 is saying there.
Right.
That's a great point.
But so let's look at this. Matt Gaetz was going to be AG, but then replaced by Pam Bondi. Matt Gaetz was embroiled in a similar situation where he was involved with some underage stuff. His buddy set him up. His buddy kind of took the fall, but Matt Gaetz still has some of this residue of a similar sort of blackmail operation, if you will. So Matt Gaetz is no longer eligible for Attorney General. He goes on a podcast and says Epstein was likely intelligence, but I'm not going to say who. Okay, if it was Chinese intelligence, he would have said it. If it was German intelligence, he would have said it. There's only one country that is a little bit dicey to say.
Epstein.
Yep, there you go. So then, okay, so now Gaetz is no longer eligible. Now we have Pam Bondi. And so if it wasn't a big deal, I don't think Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino would be paying lip service to it to such a degree before they, 200 days ago when they were potentially, candidates or, potentially going to be selected for this position in Trump's administration. They were a lot more vocal, a lot more adamant about what they were going to be doing to determine, discover, and to hold those accountable, whoever was behind this. Their tune has demonstrably changed to, we need to make sure that we're looking at the evidence correctly. Black out the victims' names and release the documents.
Okay, but I want to go further here. Okay, and I love what Noof says. If Trump was on the list, wouldn't have Biden's team released it? No, because they're on the list too.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. It's the uniparty, and both sides are on the list. Epstein was very good about this, and donors, major donors. So the point is, no one's going to, say anything about it. To your point there, shit, what was your point? Damn it, I had a good comment on that. What would you just say?
I was saying that they were very adamant about disclosing this information, and now.
Oh yes, okay, so. It doesn't necessarily have to be providing the redacted list. That's the thing that's so interesting to me about this. All they have to do is come out and make the statement. Kash Patel could say on Bret Baier right now, we know, we have the evidence, and we'll release it in due time, that he was a Mossad agent. It's got authority coming from Kash Patel. You see what I'm saying? Like,
right.
This is bullshit. They're pushing it off like, we have to go through these documents and it'll take forever, and eventually the document, the answers. Listen, we have a list, and we can't make this available, but here's who's on the list right now. And then they read the list. And I know that would blow up the news cycle and stuff like that. Maybe they'd protect the Republicans, which would be more demand by the left than to disclose the list, which would be a good thing. But they can absolutely tell us some of these things right now. And they don't. They hide behind, we have to do this right. We have to get the list out. It's like, oh, my God, you guys are such liars.
We don't want to release unreliable information, is what he said.
Right.
And, I mean, it is both the left and right. And it's not just the United States. It's Prince Andrew. Even some of the prime ministers of Israel have visited Epstein's compound, where in New York City, Leslie Wexner, the owner of Victoria's Secret, sold Jeffrey Epstein a huge mansion for $1. And in that mansion was a high-tech surveillance room and surveillance equipment in every room, just like this studio that we have here, as high-tech as you can imagine. Why do you need that in your condo, So it's like, of course, that's intelligence grabbing. And then, what was it? Just James O'Keefe recently came out with some of, I think, his most heavy-hitting material, and that is a video of Pam Bondi casually talking at a dinner, saying to someone that there are thousands of videos of different elite folks with underage kids. And I mean, maybe they're not all underage, maybe it's just compromising material here or there, but thousands. Mm-hmm. And I mean, what's the harm to the American people? Well, this could have a reverberation through all of the world, through all of the corporate hierarchies. I mean, the federal government, the elite, the corporations, Wall Street as we know it would crumble. And I think that's a good thing.
That's-
I think we all think here, like, fantastic.
Well, I do think you need some chaos in order to reset this corrupt society that we're living in.
Are you saying that if this list gets released and a bunch of like Bill Gates, blah blah blah, like all the people are on it, then
Right.
society collapses? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, because you're gonna have freaks on the left that are gonna be like, okay, well, Bill Gates, like, come on, like they're gonna find a way to defend him. People on the right will find a way to, like, people are defending Andrew Tate still, and it's like,
Right.
how, So it's one of those things where even if it gets released, I don't know how much changes, and that's almost freakier than thinking that it'll delve into chaos, right?
Bill Gates' wife divorced him because of his involvement with Epstein. I mean, that's pretty telling.
Seems like it,
right
yeah.
there. I mean, that's what she said. And I mean, and then Bill Gates afterwards goes on PBS, and he was asked by Judy Woodruff, some question about Epstein, and he's like, "Yeah, well, Epstein's dead." He starts laughing. It was so tone deaf, and if anyone thought maybe it was the elite behind his suicide, well, that to me paints a pretty clear picture of how the elite wanted, him dealt with. So, I mean, it's already having, even just being close to this person has some impact and tarnishes folks' reputations, but not enough, not enough.
All right, let's go to the last segment here, and if you guys, and then we're gonna go into our post show, which I think I got something you guys will be you guys will enjoy this. I don't have time to do in the regular show, so that'll be for premium subscribers. You can sign up at truthhurtsnews.com. All right, so this segment's brought to you by I almost said Alpine Cavalry. Yeah, sure, Alpine Cavalry in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and John Galt Mortgage Company. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. The Minnesota legislature. Do you have the football field ready to go?
I do. Yep.
Okay, so just so everyone understands, the legislative session ended over a week ago. Okay, mandatory end. It's the first Monday after the third Saturday. The legislature must adjourn, and then they don't meet until next year. So what ends up happening to pass a budget, a 2-year budget, which would start on July 1st. Governor Walz has got to call him back for a special session, and that special session would probably not be called until they have a deal worked out, and they're behind closed doors working that deal out. They've given up hope on working groups and public transparency. It's all going to be done behind the scenes, and we know that's always a recipe for good. But the whole thing came crashing at the end, even though on April 1st, the Republicans announced they had a deal with the Democrats in the House on the 2-year budget. And just so you understand how ridiculous this is, because it's just as bad as U.S. Congress, pull up the football field. The Republicans should be going to pre-pandemic levels, like on the far left blue end zone. They should be far away from the red end zone, a big government spending $67 billion, but go ahead and show where everyone's at. Their argument right now is somewhere on the 1-yard line in the end zone, the red end zone. So the whole reason we're on the cusp of a government shutdown is over minute, and we're talking about just hundreds of millions of dollars instead of tens of billions of dollars. You're not getting your surplus back. The Republicans have compromised on that. They are going to spend your surplus money. They don't even tell you there's a surplus. They keep telling you there's a deficit. That's false. There is a $7 billion surplus when you include the rainy day fund that doesn't need to be there. They could give that money back to you, but instead they are keeping government inflated. They're locking in $14 billion of the DFL trifecta's new spending, and they're right now negotiating just a little bit of money. I mean, relatively speaking, hundreds of millions of dollars, not a little bit of money, but it is relative to the overall budget. Now, with that being said, there's an interesting dynamic that just popped up. When we didn't do a show on Tuesday, I really wanted to talk more about this legislature, but there literally is no story. The deals are not working. Now they're like in there behind the closed door thing. Walls talking about it. What we do know is on June 1st, with the union contracts, the government employees of the state have to be notified that they are a month away from having, what would that be, a layoff, essentially, that the government would shut down, which would shut down July 1st. That's the beginning of the new biennium. Okay, so they have to send out that letter to state employees. They have until the end of June to come up with a budget agreement. Otherwise, there is literally a government shutdown in the state of Minnesota. Okay. They were going to try to do a special session before Memorial Day. It did not work. So at this point, what are we, May 29th? It doesn't look like they're going to come in this weekend, and there's no deal yet, unless I missed the story in the last hour or two. So at this point, they're going to be doing a special session in June. Guess who's got a trial in June?
Uh-oh.
Yep. The burglar senator, the alleged burglar senator, Nicole Mitchell. Her trial is set for June. Now, we don't know. Her trial was delayed. It was supposed to be in January. It was delayed because there was a session. I don't know. I'm sure her lawyers are arguing to delay it again. But holy shit, I'm just thinking, actually, the Republicans don't want to have any deal until that trial is going on, right? Because then the Senate is tied. There's this 34-33 majority by the Democrats in the Senate. If Nicole Mitchell is unable to attend session because she decided to break into an elderly woman's house, and God knows what she was trying to do, Dawson and I keep thinking she probably intended violence against the woman because she was standing over her while she was sleeping in bed. That's crazy. That's weird.
I thought she was trying to steal something from under her bed.
She was halfway under the bed when the mob woke up and stepped on her on accident.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
And thought it was a man inside
Yes,
the house.
and she thought she was trying to be harmed. I mean, okay. Like, just think about that. You're trying to steal something under the bed of someone that's sleeping.
Right.
I mean, maybe.
Well, the only thing.
What a bold move that is.
The only thing that was.
Anyone would think that trying to be harmed if someone's in your bedroom when you're sleeping.
The only thing that was under the bed was a shotgun. So, no other reason to be under there.
Now, you're just making that up.
No.
Where did you get that information from?
You know that I have a connection to the lady. It's a.
Are you you're breaking something on this show right now?
I thought it was just common knowledge.
No one knows that. Are you serious, Dawson?
I guess now it's out there.
We'll save that for the post show, okay? Dawson, that is not public record at all.
Okay, well,
no one is aware there is no one is aware of that information. I have never heard that information.
I got.
We'll talk about that in the post show, by the way.
Wild.
Oh my God,
Minnesota.
Now you have to
fun.
Now you have to tell our premium subscribers some more stuff. There you go. That's a real benefit of being a premium subscriber. Holy shit. Chaz says her trial is set for June 18th. Yeah. So now I don't know. Maybe they will get delayed.
June 18th.
June 18th.
The day before Juneteenth. Wow.
Yeah, she'll be in trial Juneteenth. And it's not like Walz is gonna. I mean that's such an interesting dynamic because Walz obviously doesn't want the Senate to be in a tie, though there's so many Republicans that are basically Democrats anyhow. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter, but I mean, Walz doesn't really have an option if it's delayed another couple of weeks. He's not like he's gonna call for June. Well, we won't know how long the trial will last, right? And we don't know if she doesn't get prosecuted. And if she gets found guilty, even if she's found guilty by jury, that doesn't necessarily mean she won't be a senator. Watch the Democrats argue, well, until she gets convicted, which would be her sentencing. I think that's how it works. Until she gets convicted, she's still a duly elected senator. Oh, my God. So there you go. Yeah, Billy Tutu says, won't matter. Republicans lose all ties. I know. But at least there's some fighters in the Senate. It's an interesting dynamic. We'll see how that comes. Okay, I want to get into the post show now very much to talk about what you're going to talk about. I also want to. I got some video that we got to play. It's hilarious. You guys will enjoy this. If you're fans of Action for Liberty, you'll appreciate the post show. If you are not a premium subscriber, go to truthhurtsnews.com or on the top of Rumble, just click on join. Thank you to Incognito for our wonderful Rumble rant today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this around if you agree with what we talked about and think people need to hear what's in the big, beautiful bill. I just didn't see a lot of resources out there that actually went into this. So hopefully this was very helpful. And we stand in solidarity with you, Elon. We stand with you, Elon.
He did it.
Hearts go out to you.
The hearts go out.
I just realized as soon as I did that, it's pretty easy for people to screen capture it.
It was way off to the side. I think you're safe.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, I've been called worse things. I've been told I have a trail of dead babies as a result of me, right? That was an interesting one by a supposed pro-life group. Tucker says, great show, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
all right, so post-show, we'll be starting in 1 minute. Everyone else will be back on Tuesday. Thank you to our sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. Thank you to call Warren at 612-419-7453. Thank you, Chaz651. Just, Chaz, if you're not a premium subscriber, sign up. We'll be on locals in 1 minute. I can't wait. Thank you to John Galt Mortgage Company. Go to johngaltmortgage.com. And thank you to Alpine Chemistry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. All right. I can't wait. I am so pumped about the post show. Once again, if you're not a premium subscriber, join us at truthhurtsnews.com. By the way, you also get a 25% discount on Permit to Carry course, too. That's a nice thing. So if you're a premium subscriber, another deal.
I just took it, and it's awesome. Jake is a great instructor. So
well, thank you, Gunnar.
Yeah,
I appreciate
if you're
that.
interested in getting your carry permit as a good Minnesotan, you should do that and take Jake's class. Also, if you're interested in hiring a Trump impersonator, please reach out to me.
Hey, just so you know, because I ask at the beginning of the class, level of experience shooting, and I did not know you were a good shot. I will confirm you were the best guy on the range that day.
Well, so you allowed 25 shots. My favorite number is 24, so of course I missed one. I just don't know if I did it deliberately or not.
Ah, gotcha. Well, needless to say, very good control of your firearm. So very good job,
sir.
Gunnar.
Thank you.
Good student, right? All right, we'll be live in 1 minute. Everyone else will see you back